All right, we're live again, back again this week with another episode of SCMP Live Chat. And this week we got the brothers from a different mother. You know what I mean? The Hickman brothers. They've been down since day one. I just got to put it out there right away. They've been down since day one. They've been on the journey. I've been watching their journey. I don't even know how many years now. It feels like it has flown by so fast, right? Like, I want to get your thoughts, George, because you're the first one I met in Korea at the road show. And I don't even know what year that was, but I remember that you were cornering Bruno, and I came up to you and I was just like, hey, I don't even know what I said. I just said, hey, because you're like the only person there that was like not Korean. So I just came up to you and it just started chatting it up because I knew you were the coach. So do you remember that? Do you remember our first conversation? You probably don't.
I don't think I remember our first conversation. I remember more when we spoke in depth at the infamous Battlefield show. Shout out to Battlefield for all the
Yeah,
fans playing.
shout out for Battlefield for not doing anybody right. Everybody doing everybody wrong, right? But anyways, yeah, man, it's been a long history. You know what I mean? Like, before we get into anything about MMA and stuff like that, I owe a lot to these brothers. They are really like brothers in MMA to me. You know what I mean? At least, you know what I mean? Like they have helped me out so much, and I'm gonna ride with them to the end, die, and and let's get it in, man. Let's talk about what's going on in MMA today. Like the biggest thing I feel like is Dana White putting out that video of just him smashing, bashing, just throwing in combos against the MMA media. But to me, to be honest with you, I thought that it was like a publicity plug for all the media members. Like like he just like told everybody, hey, these are the guys you should probably go check out because they're actually doing a good job with the media. But yeah, Frank, I want to get your thoughts. You remember, kind of rewind and go back to that moment. You know what I mean? Of like when COVID first hit and the UFC was kind of like jumping around and scattering and trying to get a show started. Like, what was the mindset for you at that time?
Well, when they started talking about this whole Fight Island thing, I don't think anybody knew the severity of COVID. So when they started talking about this whole Fight Island, I honestly thought it was a big travesty. I thought it was not real, and I was like, man, they're just gonna keep pushing this. They're gonna keep selling people on this fantasy Fight Island until everything goes back to normal, and then we'll go back to the shows, and then they'll just come out and say, oh well, we didn't need the Fight Island because uh, you know, we had now everything's back to normal. So that's what I kind of thought. But, now looking at it, when they announced that they were going to have it and then actually being there twice, man, I mean, you really got to tip your hat to them because they did everything right. You know what I mean? They put everything in place. They spent heaps of money, heaps of coin to bring people in. We only quarantine for 48 hours, coaches and athletes. But those staff members that are there, even the people in the hotel, they quarantine 14 days prior to everyone getting there and them starting work. So it was something serious, man. I was really impressed, and um, I tipped my hat to what they had done, and they did a great job with it.
They did, man. They did a good job, and both of you guys were, went to the island, came back, did your quarantines. I feel like that is like the biggest burden for most of the fighters, the coaches, whoever, is when they go back to their country and do the quarantines. You know what I mean? You guys have to do 2 weeks, right? Like Korea is 2 weeks when they come back from another country. What about Hong Kong, Nick? How many days is it or weeks is it for you guys?
They just moved anyone coming from Britain now is 3 weeks because they have this mutant strain of COVID there. Yeah, we are mutants. Yeah, it's about 2 weeks normally for every other country, but Britain's getting special treatment now because we're so bad. We messed up so hard back home.
Yeah. Well, anyways, when the fighters and coaches go back, man, I think that's the biggest burden is them just sitting there for 2 weeks with nothing. Like they're just there. You know what I mean? They don't, I know you have to do it, but it's like, yeah, George is there right now. He's in quarantine right now. How many days you got left?
I get out a week from today.
Oh, so you've been in there for 1 week now. So now going back to that video of Dana White bashing the media, you know, you probably seen the video. I'm pretty sure everybody's seen it that's involved in MMA. What do you think
I
about
loved
that?
it. I did. I really liked it because I think a lot of these reporters, they get off and they make I guess you could say they make a living, but all of it is just clickbait. You know what I mean? It's always just a clickbait. It's always just you see the clickbait, you click on it, and then you like the video is never really what it seems to it. You know, here's an example. I noticed that all these reporters were talking about what's the kickboxer that beat Israel in kickboxing, right? He made his MMA
Herrera.
debut, LFA, and everyone said they only got to knock out Israel Adesanya. They kept chatting just to pump him up, but like, so realistically, Izzy is light years away from this guy. Like, this dude's in his rearview mirror. No disrespect, but they had to sell that. You know what I mean? And then it came to the one kid who signed with Bellator, the only guy to beat Peter Yan. Like, come on, you know what I mean? They love to say that stuff, and they get you to click. Oh man, this guy really beat. And then it just brings up stuff from the past that, like, why couldn't you just focus on the guy's career now or future and say, oh, big rising star, the next big thing in MMA? But you got to take it a step further, and you got to put some sort of clickbait to go with it. And you know, a lot of them, that's what they do. And then it was all negative narratives about it's not going to work and this and that, you know. And it just didn't sit right because, you know, we're in a sport where these guys got to get paid to eat, to feed their family. So why wouldn't you want them to fight? Why wouldn't you want this thing to go through so everybody can fight? You know, hell, I enjoyed being on the airplane traveling again. Yeah, the quarantine sucks, but you're back in that atmosphere. You're back around that environment. This is what you signed up for. This is the career you chose. So, yeah, like, let the boys have some fun. You know, let them get back to getting paid and putting on and display their skills in front of the world. Give the fans something to watch. Because let's be honest, the world without sports was a complete shit show. You know what I mean? Like college football, college basketball, college wrestling, yeah, baseball, you know, all this stuff. But when you realize when you don't have it for 4 months, you know what I mean? Like, a lot of people took it hard, and because a lot of us live to watch sports. You know, sports makes our world go around. Sports is what keeps people glued to the TV or sane, or gives people encouragement, something to root for. So, you know, they were just trying to get something back on the TV for everybody to watch and the boys that get paid, and they were still trying to, you know, undercut it and cut it down. Like, this isn't going to work. This place isn't going to work. But kudos to Dana White, the big fella, because he proved everybody wrong, and he proved that it could work. So, you know what I mean? And the reporters and the clickbaits and stuff, man, it just, you're so used to it now. You just see it over and over and over again. And it's like everything else. It just tries to pull you in and lure you in. Just about views for them.
John,
Well,
am I able to show this video, or am I going to get copyright strike
Which video?
of Dana White's media
No,
thing?
you don't show anything from the UFC because
Okay.
I've seen that the UFC has been like cracking down hard on videos. Like, if you
Okay.
show anything that involves anything with the UFC, they're gonna take it down, and they're gonna
Okay.
throw some
I'll leave
copyright
it.
strikes on you. But yeah, before I get into my thoughts on the situation on the video, I wanted to get George's views because, you know, he probably has a different stance on it, or maybe he has the same.
I think for me, the big thing, like, even before obviously the video, or before they went to Fight Island, like, I was supposed to go to America, to Ohio last March, to go with Khalil for his fight. And I think it was like Cleveland or somewhere. And it was like the week before the fight. And I had just gotten back from one of the UFC shows in Auckland, and they canceled. I remember, like, at first I was somebody was like, one of Frank and I's friends were like, oh, I think they're going to cancel the show. And I was like, nah, they're not. Like, Dana White's not going to cancel it, you know? And then, like, I saw NBA was canceled like the next day. And then I was like, oh, they're definitely going to cancel it now. And, and I knew that it was serious then. And I think at that time, everyone was kind of like, you know, no one knew what was going on. We've never experienced this before. And then obviously they canceled. I think they had one more UFC, or maybe that was the one show in Brazil before that they had, before the Ohio one. But anyways, they canceled it. And then I was like, man, this shit is serious. And yeah, and then once like Dana came out and said, like, at that time people were like talking about how long COVID was going to last and the world was going to be shut down, and like at that, you know, obviously sports had already all been closed down, and of course he got a lot of you know, pushback and people from the media saying stuff, and like I didn't really like think either way because I didn't know what to think about it. You know, we didn't know a lot about what COVID actually was at that time, and there was like, you know, misinformation being like passed around. But looking back on it, like Dana was a genius. Like all the good things that happened this year and all the like the industry I think has changed, you know, in a lot of ways. And I commend him because, you know, there was like a long time, like Frank said, like he was excited to fly again because I think he went to the first Fight Island. And yeah, I was the same way the first time that I went there. Like I was excited to be doing what I loved again. And to be fair, like this whole year, I've literally traveled. I traveled once to Fight Island, and I just got back from Las Vegas. So the amount of times that I've traveled this year outside of the country of Thailand, other than like one show, was 2 times. And normally I travel every month or a couple times every month, you know? So it was, it felt good to, it felt almost foreign because I hadn't traveled in so long the first time I went to Fight Island. So it felt great to, you know, to be able to get back into the, like Frank said, the environment and the atmosphere. And as far as like the video, like I thought the video was cool. You know, I thought that like that's just who Dana is. I think, I don't know the guy, but you know, like he's very, like a very big figure, and he, you know, like he's all in, and you see him like talk shit about the media, like, and say stuff in public anyway. So it didn't really surprise me when he like bashed the media. It was like, I don't know, it kind of added to the video, I thought.
Yeah, with Dana White, we already know that he's not a guy to take the high road on anything. He's the guy to go head first. He's the linebacker on the defense of a football team, right? He's gonna put that helmet in your chest, you know, when you're running down the middle. That's Dana White, and that's what the video is about. Dana White is just, that's expected of him, you know what I mean? Like to go after the media because that's what he does. He goes after people, and it was corny to me though. Like it's petty, corny, right? And like he could have just moved on with it, you know what I mean? Like it's not like it's over. Like people are gonna write clickbait. People are gonna. It's not even just MMA media though. It's like all media, right? Adam H. He makes a good point in the comments where he's like saying that media is prone to clickbait, and the thing is, a lot of the clickbait was outside of the MMA media. It was just like these other outlets that really don't even cover MMA or the UFC, and it actually worked in favor of the UFC to get more attention, to get more eyes on the sport, to get more eyes on the organization, to be honest with you. And I think the video was great for the journalists and the analysts and whoever was featured on there to get their name out there, because I think the video has been seen by like millions of people by now, right? Millions. And think about how many eyes that allows you to have. Like I'm kind of like, why was it? I don't even know if I bashed the UFC. Actually, I wasn't bashing the UFC. I thought the UFC was doing good by having shows and stuff like that. So maybe thinking about it, maybe I should have, if I could go back to the past, I should have bashed the UFC so I could be on the video and shit, right? Like, why did I do that? I could have done that. But really, I thought that they were doing good. You know what I mean? Like, I understand some of the angles that the journalists took on like the articles that they wrote. But not all the stuff was clickbait, though. A lot of the stuff was facts, right? A lot of the stuff was legitimate concerns for people that are fighting, or the organization, or just the sport and stuff like that. It wasn't all clickbait. So him targeting, like, you know, the media, of course that's going to happen. And also the journalists that were featured on there, they're some of the best in the industry, man. I'm serious. Like some of the best in the industry, like hands down. And they're fighting back at this moment about the video. And I love it, man. I love watching it from the sidelines. You know what I mean? Like I'm not no investigative journalist or something like that. So I like to watch it and see it and peep it out. And it's going to continue. 2021 is going to even just get worse, I think. Like, I think we're going to, like, Frank, before we were like hopped on, we were talking about super COVID. It's like, when does that hit? Like, even if it's real, you know what I mean? Like, Is that going to put a dent in the plans of the UFC? Who knows, man? We don't know. 2021 is coming, right? So, you know, the vaccine is coming.
Get it out.
I'm very wary about the vaccine. I'm like very wary about that. You know what I mean? Like, hey, did you see that meme? It's like everybody that took the polio vaccine is dead. Did you see that meme? Everybody that took the polio, you know why? Because they all took it in like 1800s. Of course they're dead. You know what I mean? Of course they're dead. They took it in the 1800s or whatever, 1900s. But yeah, that's a good meme though. Anyways, I don't want to go down the rabbit hole of the vaccine, but yeah, the video, I thought it was it is what it is, like Dana White likes to say, right? He just was pumping his chest, and it was a promotional tool for the UFC. That's basically it at the end of the day. Now moving on from that, you know what I mean? There's some big news though, like this with the UFC, especially with Dana White, you know what I mean? And it kind of ties in with what he said in that video was I believe it was in the video where he said that no employees were going to get fired or let go. But he's not talking about the fighters, you know what I mean? He's talking about the people that work in the offices. So what do you guys think about this? They're going to release like 60, and I think it's going to be like 100 fighters from the roster because they're going to want to sign new guys, younger guys. What do you think of this whole, Frank, I want to get with you first, this whole like shift now? Like they're going to get rid of guys. Look, Pettis is gone, Yoel's gone, Rumble's gone, and I'm thinking like a lot of dudes, like even Ferguson could be gone. Even Weidman, if he loses next fight, could be gone. Like, what do you think of this shift right now?
I think that at the end of the day, the UFC is a business, and a business has to keep turning over, and a business has to keep going and keep growing. And unfortunately, it's a cutthroat business like any other sport, to where once you get to a plateau, whether it be age or whether it be record or whether it be, you know, lack of performance of, or not many eyes on people who watch, et cetera, they start to look and dissect that, and then they realize, okay, well, these guys are on the way out. The next we're going to bring, who are we going to bring in next, or who's going to be the next young blood to come through, the next big star. So, you know, the UFC is a business, and it's a very, very, very wealthy business. And, you know, they pay these guys quite a bit of money, some better than others, and some not that good. But I think, you know, it's just a lot of pressure, man. You got to have good performances. You got to hope everything goes well, good weight cuts, hope your body holds up. You know what I mean? You got to go about things the right way just so you can fly under the radar and, you know, stay active, but also stay like in that zone of where you're okay. You know, I'm not going to get cut, etc. But, you know, unfortunately, I've heard Dana say that his roster is very overinflated. So with that being said, if you're overinflated, you got to make cuts somewhere. And, you know, you never want to see it happen to anybody, but, you know, again, it's a business, and just like football or baseball. And sometimes if you don't cut it, the mustard, then, you know, they're always looking for something else. And that's just how business works, whether it's in the corporate world or whether it's in the UFC and et cetera. And, you know, unfortunately, unfortunately, you can't stay in it your whole life. You know, you have a very short window for this business, and for a fight career. And like I said, man, they're always looking for the next big thing, and they're always looking to replace somebody with somebody else. So it's like you said, they say 60, it might be a bit more. It's never good to see when somebody gets a call or gets, you know, that message or that email saying that, you know, their talent's no longer needed and they need to look elsewhere for employment. It does suck, but, you know, again, Dana, he runs a business, he runs a tight ship, and that's also a reason why the UFC has found success over so many years and such a long time, and it's only getting better, you know, with talent and shows and fight matchups and prospects. It's only getting better. So they got to make room, I guess, for the new blood, and they got to make room maybe to add some. I don't know if they're going to add a weight or they're going to pull from whatever, but yeah, man, it's kind of a shitty situation. You know, you never want to be at the wrong end of that barrel, but this is life. So yeah, it's all about this, unfortunately.
George, you know, like the UFC, do you think it has become big enough to where they don't need to have like these mid upper level fighters anymore. They just need the big stars, and then they could just stack the bottom of the cards. It's kind of like boxing in a way, if you think about it, right? You have the big stars up at top on the pay-per-views, and then the bottom is just prospects. You know what I mean? They just sprinkle the bottom with all prospects, and because of the name, the UFC, people are going to tune in for the name of the UFC and the big stars, and the guys in the bottom, they're just going to be fighting for crumbs and maybe move up in the ranks and stuff if they see some prospect in them. But yeah, I think like the UFC realizes that now, and they're just trying to kind of capitalize off of that, which is turning into boxing. That's what it feels like it to me now. Now that I think about it, now hearing Frank say that, I think about it now. I think it's like kind of similar to what boxing is doing, or boxing has been doing for a long time, is paying the big dudes a lot of money, and then the lower dudes a certain minimum, and then the middle guys, you can send them to the other organizations, and they're going to get paid probably better in the other organizations, but they just won't be fighting in the UFC. So, George, do you think like the name has gotten big enough to where they can do that?
Yeah, I just think that it's a very different time in MMA right now. Like the landscape of not just the UFC, but all businesses have kind of changed through COVID. And if you're a fighter now that's like kind of on the cusp, or like maybe not even on the cusp, but you have some wins and stuff, it's a very strange time in MMA. And I think a lot of people have been signed during the pandemic. People are testing positive for COVID, and they're getting people on short notice, and there's a lot of crazy stuff happening right now. It's just a very different time than where we were a year ago. And I think that with all those people that they've been signing recently, obviously the roster has become a bit inflated. And why, for example, somebody like on the last card on 256 or on the last pay-per-view, guys like Jacare and JDS, like they're really good fighters still, but they hit a skid, or maybe haven't done as well as they have in the past, or what they were in their prime. But those guys make a lot of money, and I mean, are they ever going to fight for the title again? Probably not. No. And are they going to be top ranked contenders? They've kind of been losing to the younger guys. So from a business standpoint, why have those guys on your roster and have to pay that much money? So it sucks. As like a fighter, obviously I used to fight, and I know how, like, understand that part of it, and as a coach, but as a business, I understand that as well. And you also see guys like Chimaev, who got the call up, won 2 fights in really spectacular fashion. Probably didn't make a lot of money, for their show and win bonus the first 2 fights, but now look at the guy. Look who he's fighting now. So there's a lot of up and coming talent that's coming off of the shows like the Contender Series and stuff like that are now, guys that are breaking into the top 10, the top 5 and stuff. So it's yeah, it's a very interesting time, but it sucks for the guys that aren't going to have a job and stuff like that. Totally understand that, but at the same time, I understand the business aspect of it as well. And I mean, the UFC is a big business,
When I behind the scenes, and I talk to people that's in the industry, and you guys do also, I hear this is a common theme, which is fighters will get signed on short notice in the UFC, go out, fight again like a month or 2 later, and then on their third fight they would renegotiate their contract real quickly within a span of like a couple of months. You know what I mean? And you've seen a lot of guys fight back to back to back to back this year, and I feel like that's something that is a trend. You know what I mean? Just to get the better contract, just to get more money, and it's working out for a lot of guys. Chimaev probably has a beautiful contract right now, right? Like he's a big star, and he hasn't even fought anybody in the top 15 at all, so, and he's a main event coming up next month. So he got to get paid a lot, and I think he deserves to get paid a lot. I think a lot of fighters deserve a lot more than they're getting, but it's not my choice like how much people get paid. yeah, so it's the scene right now with the free agency. I feel like it's going to be good for the other promotions at the end of the day. It's good for PFL, it's good for Bellator, it's good for One Championship, it's good for like all the other major organizations. It's good for Ryzen, because why? You get a lot of this talent that still have mileage, you know, like a JDS, like a Jacare. They still have some mileage, and you could sign them and maybe sign them for a decent contract where it's not going to take too much of your financials, right? And fight and have them fight in a main event, drawing more eyes to the shows that you guys are putting on these other organizations, and it could balance it out a little bit. And I feel like, positively looking at it, I feel like that's what's going to happen. And the UFC is kind of like in a weird, ironic way, helping the whole industry out by cutting a lot of the fighters that they don't feel like they have promise or a future with the organization. And it sucks, but hey, man, there's always opportunity out there if you're a great fighter. But it also tells you too that fighters and anybody that's involved in this industry, you guys need to have a backup plan. You guys need to be doing multiple things. You know what I mean? Like nowadays, it's not just about being a fighter anymore. It's about everything, man. You're a brand in yourself. You know what I mean? You guys know that. You guys have a brand in yourself too. So how important is that, do you think, is to have other things going on? You know, you guys have your coaching gigs going on, but you guys are not just making money off coaching. There's other things that you're doing right now. You don't have to reveal what you're doing, but that, you know, is it important for you? Frank, let's start with you.
Yeah, I guess they always say you should have multiple sources of income. That's not really the case at the moment, but yeah, I think as a fighter, man, George could speak more of this, but as a fighter, I'm assuming you put everything into your craft, and you gotta have, and to be the best, you really gotta just focus solely on that. So, it's kind of difficult to be a fighter, I guess, and to focus everything, especially if you don't have a real job, if your main focus is just to fight and get paid off of that. But what you do on the side, I think, is definitely important, because, you know, eventually the tread of the tire falls off, right? Eventually you're going to run out of, I guess you say you could run out of gas. You're going to get to a certain point to whether you're too old, your body's too banged up, or you got your family you want to focus on, that you're going to have to step away from the sport. So, you know, hopefully guys can stack the cheese, and they can stack the money and put it into something else, and let that something else make money for them while they're still training and fighting. So when they get to that certain point down the road, they have money to fall back on if they get in a jam, until they get something else going. So, you know, I think it's important for these guys, yes, like you said, to do whatever it is, you know, whether some guys take their bonuses and they put it in, you know, maybe they buy a condo, or they buy something and they rent it out, and et cetera, something like that, or they put money in a stock, or, you know, something. It is important because, like I said, eventually you're going to be too old for this sport, and you got to get out of this game. And hopefully when you get out of the game, you don't have what you had in your pocket to start with. You have a lot more, because you were wise with your money and you spent your money wisely. And, you know, you saw maybe investment opportunities at the right time. And yeah, you dabbled and got your feet wet in other stuff, just besides the fighting part of it. So it's
Nick,
important.
do you need to hop out?
I was happy to inform you, John. The interview with Anthony Showtime Pettis has been moved back until 12 o'clock. So I'm all yours.
All right, cool. Yeah, we're trying to get Anthony Pettis on for the interview, and Nick was about to hop out to interview him, but I guess it's moved to 12 o'clock, which is what, an hour and a half from now?
About an hour and a half. So yeah, I'm with you for the duration.
All right, good. Now, yeah, you know, going back to that, it's like, I feel, yeah, it's a hard balancing act, man, because I'm not a fighter, you know what I mean? And I could only give you my perspective from watching and speaking with fighters all the time. And some fighters are 100%, you know, on their career, you know what I mean? That's what their focus is, and they really believe, and they're really striving to become the UFC champion, or they're, you know, or their goal is to make money, or their goal is to fight for this organization or that organization. I feel like that has to be clear when you're a fighter. And if it's not clear and you're just like training to fight, man, those are the guys that I'm really worried about. George, you fought, you try to balance things out, coaching and fighting at the same time. That is probably the hardest thing to do.
Yeah, I think that like when I first started fighting, after when I moved to Atlanta and turned professional, uh, I had a full-time job. Like I was in the car business, like Frank. Like I didn't work. I had the luxury of not working as much or near as much as the rest of the people that I worked with in the car business because my employer, the boss was like they knew from the get go that when I moved there, I was moving there to fight. But once I had knee surgery, I had to get a job. I had to support myself, and until I moved to Thailand for like 4 years or so, I worked full time and made a pretty good living, I would say, and I fought and I trained 2 or 3 times a day, and I made it work. And it wasn't always easy, but uh, you can have a job and and still be a fighter, especially on a more of a regional scene for sure. And I think it's important. It takes discipline and it gives you balance, but it also like you're not living like some broke person in the gym. Because realistically, the only difference I think, and I was told this by people that kind of were like mentors to me at that time when I was complaining about having a job, and they were like, the only difference between you and me is that we train the same amount of times during the day, but you go to work and I have my own business or whatever it is, or I'm just fighting full time in the UFC and they made enough money to support themselves and their family. So I remember complaining about that one time and then like, why are you complaining? You're not like every other up and coming broke fighter without health insurance or money and stuff. Like you have a nice car, you have a nice apartment that you live in, and you have health insurance. And when they said that to me, it kind of made sense to me. Like I train the same amount of time as they do, and they're fighters in the UFC, but the only difference is I don't like get to relax and recover and stay at home and do whatever it was that they do. I need to go work. And even being around different fighters out here, it wasn't easy coaching and fighting at the same time, and that's why I kind of stopped coaching. It's hard to do both, and as someone once told me, if you serve two masters, you can't serve two masters. One thing is going to give, and yeah, I think it's important, especially for up and coming fighters. Like once you're in the UFC, if you have sponsors and you're making decent money after a couple of fights, then yeah, you can just be a fighter. But I think it's important to to try to invest money or to try to figure out ways to make money and make yourself into a brand, whether it's your YouTube or whatever it may be. I think it's very important. But as far as up and coming fighters, I remember hearing Brad Riddell one time telling somebody like, he's like some of the best stuff I've ever heard someone tell another fighter. They were like, and he said it in the most positive way. He was like, look, bro, the chances of you making it to be Conor McGregor are like 0 to none. And he was like, I say that with the most like, I don't mean to be negative and like tear you down. Like you can still do great and you may make it there, but like you need to have a job to be able to support yourself. Like you can work and train at the same time. And whoever tells you that you can't, that's ridiculous. Especially on the lower level, of MMA or kickboxing or whatever it may be. But I think that it's very important for up and coming fighters, to have a job, to try to upskill and have skills in other things and work on their brand, especially once you get to the UFC. Like you should be trying to build your brand and and just be real.
Yeah. Before we move on, hey, did Glenn Sparve get engaged?
Yes.
Yeah. Big
Oh
Glenn got
man,
engaged.
you got to give a little love on this show, man. Glenn, someone that I probably thought never would be engaged. That dude was a fighter's fighter, right? Like he would just fight to live to fight.
Hey, he married an Aussie girl. Permanent residency is what he told me, mate.
Oh, so is he in Australia right now?
Now he's in Finland with his missus. But
okay.
I said congrats to him, and he said, yeah, permanent residency. It's a win-win for my man. But now I'm very happy for Glenn. Yeah, let me tell you something about Glenn. Glenn he's a true fighter's fighter. He is somebody that like he fights for money and to get better, but like when he's in Thailand, like in anywhere, he like with his money, he budgets it because like he knows, you know what I mean? Like he understands. Like when we go to Starbucks, we get the Pike's Place roast, right? And then whatever change is left, I never see it because he just gaps it in his pocket. And then like Glenn understands the system and he knows how to go about it the right way. And he knows it when he's like training full time and the money isn't coming in like it should, he can still be about it. He can still eat properly. He can still get his proper training in. So then when he goes to fly, sometimes he doesn't even take a cornerman so he can pocket that extra money from the flight and stuff like that. And yeah, man, I'm happy for him. He's got his missus now. He's going to get his permanent residency. So big props to Glenn. Is looking up for him already. See, COVID's been rough for some people, but for some people, hey, you know what I mean? They find the love of their life.
That's right. Well, hey, congratulations to Glenn, man. Always a pleasure to just, yeah. Glenn, like you said, he's a guy that could mentor young fighters, man. Like he's going to be a great coach, I think. I think eventually when he decides to do that, he decides not to fight anymore. He's going to be a great coach and a mentor for a lot of guys because he lived it, man. He lived, like you said, he lived like getting paid, budgeting, flying with no corners. Nowadays fighters are just complaining about everything, right? Like they don't have a corner, or I didn't get to fly out the corner that I wanted, or you know what I mean? Like Glenn and like Will Chope, those are the guys that are like flying to like countries that don't even speak the language and fighting with nobody except for themselves. Dolo, you know what I mean? Like they're just dolo and just doing it like that. And these guys need to give out courses to these young guys of how to live and how to take their careers seriously, man. Glenn, congratulations, man. George, you want to say anything to Glenn? Maybe he's listening.
Congratulations, Glenn. Well deserved, my friend. You did good.
All right, now let's get into some familiar characters, some characters that you guys are very familiar with. You guys been in the trenches with. You guys have trained with. Eat with, traveled with, and the first one is who was the first one? Oh yeah, Adesanya and Blachowicz, right? Blachowicz, right? I don't want to say it wrong. This matchup, man, like it's not official yet, but it looks like they're gonna put this one together for most likely March, maybe something like that. This is what I'm hearing. Maybe later, I don't know for sure. So I want to get your guys' thoughts on Israel and his rise and the matchup. Like this is a matchup where they're setting up Israel to become a massive star, just like how they did with Conor McGregor, to be able to hold both titles at one time, man. They don't do that for everybody. They've only done that for Conor. They've done that for Amanda Nunes. They've done that for BJ Penn, but BJ Penn didn't win the welterweight title. And I don't remember anyone else that they've done this for. So they really, think highly of Israel. And I wanted to get, let's start with Frank, because you've been in there down at City Kickboxing a lot. You're very, you're affiliated with them. You're very close to them. Talk about Israel and him just as a person.
I think what you see with Izzy is what you get. He's the same on social media as he is in real life. He likes to cut about. He likes to have a good time. But he has fun with what he does, and I think that's what really makes him very successful. He works his ass off, and he continues to get better at what he does, but he's also a salesman, and he is I don't want to say he's the next big star, because I do think he is, and I'm not saying that because I'm biased, but they haven't really seen anything like him since Conor McGregor. And so, shout outs to AP Sports Management and Paradigm, because they've done a great job with him and, and building him up and putting him in a position to be so successful. And the thing I love about Izzy is Izzy's in a position now where he has, like Dana said, he could fight Whitaker again. He could fight John Jones at the end of 2021. He can fight Jan, which he is going to fight Jan for 205. But look at the people who he's brought with him. Look at the guys from his team who he's brought with him. You know what I mean? Look at the guys, the coaches that he's brought with him, his families. He's brought everybody with him along for the ride. When he did a tour, when he was out in LA and New York last year for about, I don't know, maybe it was I could be wrong, maybe 10 days or so. He took like 2 of his buddies, and they were in LA, they were in New York City, they were at the Knicks games. And then, fast forward, and then he goes to Fight Island, and all the boys are with him, and, they're dancing on TV, and then Carlos gets in and gets a contract. Blood Diamond's right there getting in, and then, Dan, Brad, Shane, Kai, the boys are all fighting Volk, and everything he's done, man, he's taken everybody with him. So that really says something about his character and his demeanor. You know what I mean? Some people you see, and it's just really just them, but it's Izzy, and then it's his whole team behind the scenes. I've seen him go to a workout and help a kid that was fighting on an Eternal show for his first pro fight, where there was maybe 1,500 people in the crowd, because that guy comes and helps Izzy on a Sunday to get him ready before he fought Yo Romero, right? So there's no selfishness in that game that he does. And if they always say, if I'm eating, I want my boys to eat too, and that's what he's been doing. He's been genuinely helping everybody else around him, and it comes from a culture that they have created and stuff. And he's put himself in a position where he's going to fight for the belt at 205 pounds. It's a fight; anything can happen. However, I think Izzy's IQ, his fight senses, his instincts are going to be too much for Jan. Again, Jan's a phenomenal fighter. To be in the top 5, let alone be the champ in any weight class, you got to be a phenomenal fighter. I just think that Israel's going to be too crafty. I think he's going to be too slick and too fast for him. And that's how I see the fight going. I'm not really one to make predictions about knockouts or this and that, but I do see Izzy, winning that fight and controlling the whole fight. Don't know when it's going to be. Obviously, I'll be excited for it, and whether I'm there to help for camp or I'll be glued to the TV. Either way, I'll still have the same nerves, because you want the best for the guy, and he wins this fight, he's going to be a 2-time belt holder. And then obviously everybody knows you can't look past this fight, but then everybody knows what they want. Everybody looks forward to that fight. They know what it is. They've talked about it. Izzy's talked about it. 2021 at the end of Raider Stadium. And that's something that, everybody wants to see. But, first you got to focus on Jan. Don't know when it's going to be. I know they've talked about it. They've agreed about it. They've come back to it. Nothing's been released yet, but yeah, man, it's another fight for him. It's a weight class up, but I think the outcome and the goal and this focus is still the same. And it's to get your hand raised at the end of the fight. And it's to prove more naysayers wrong. And it's to prove, like he says, he doesn't have to prove anything to anybody. He's just got to prove himself right. So I'm very excited for that one. Yeah, that's gonna be a bananas fight, man. That's gonna put him in a different plateau. This last fight, his showcase, his performance really put him up there, and this one is just gonna skyrocket. Like you said, they don't do that for everybody. There's been about 4 people that have held the belt simultaneously. So this will be, number 5, if you're asking me. And it's just a big opportunity, for sport of MMA, for Nigeria, for Izzy and his family, for CKB, for Auckland, for the Anzacs, you know what I mean? For the culture, it's a massive fight.
Yeah, it is a massive fight, and you gotta strike when the iron is hot. Like, I've kind of changed my tune on that as of late. It's like, if you could make the fight now, you gotta make the fight now.
Absolutely.
And that's what they're doing with this, is because you don't know what's gonna happen 6 months from now. If Hyon is even the champ, or if Izzy's even the champ, if you have him fight again at middleweight, you gotta strike. And I'm hearing that Robert Whittaker is probably gonna fight someone else for the interim title, which is, I think that's a good idea too. If Israel's gonna go fight Hyon and possibly be a 2-belt holder, if he wins, I think it's all right to have an interim title at middleweight. And who else better? Robert Whittaker. That sets it up real nice too. If Israel goes up and wins that belt and comes back down and faces Robert Whittaker, if he gets the interim title, now you got champ versus champ, and everybody's gonna love that fight. But George, what do you think? What do you think of the rise in the decision making by the UFC? Do you think like there's still a lot of guys that Israel can fight at middleweight?
Well, just like you said, they're talking about having Rob fight for the interim belt. So that tells you right there, no, because he's already cleaned Rob up quite easily. And I just want to give a shout out, not a shout out, but Eddie Blasian. Why are you so angry? Who's that guy coming? No, I think that like there he is, Eddie Blasian. He hates Israel. God. Yeah, I mean he already like clean like it's MMA, so it's a very that's why we all love MMA is because it's the most truest like form of combat. It's not like boxing where the A side and the B side and the A side is supposed to beat the B side. Like crazy shit happens in MMA fights, and even though maybe somebody's a big favorite, again you don't know what's going to happen. But I think that as far as like people to fight, like I'm not really interested in seeing Israel fight Rob again, honestly. Or maybe like he gets another couple wins, and then if Israel has to fight him again, then he can fight him. But it just doesn't. Me as a fan, that fight doesn't do too much to me. But all those guys that Blasian just put back up there, like have one of them fight Rob, and then I don't know. I don't really. I don't even care really about what's going to happen at 185 because they're saying that Izzy's going to fight at 205. So let the man go up there and fight and do his thing and then take it from there and see what's going to happen. Because it's MMA. Today you say one thing, tomorrow another thing happens, and next month something else happens, and we may not even be having this conversation. So yeah, for me it's just like okay, I want to see him fight John or Jan or however you say his name, and obviously I want him to school him up and see him fight Jones. But there's no like I'm not gonna try to figure out what's gonna happen because it's MMA and things change, especially in the current like landscape of the MMA. Things change very quickly. So
Yeah, they're talking.
I don't care about the 185 thing.
Yeah, they're talking about Stipe is going to defend against Ngannou. Whoever wins that fight fights John Jones at heavyweight, right? And you kind of understand like the plan, the roadmap of the UFC right now for 2021. If when you got Jan facing off against Israel wins that fight, Jan wins that fight. It's like this is a huge opportunity for Jan too, man. Like this is you're getting a chance to like beat one of the icons of the sport right now that's at the top of the game. And if you go in there and starch Israel, that rockets you. You're on the rocket ship right now. The UFC needs to because he's got Europe. That's Europe, man. There's a lot of European stars out there, and he could be one of those guys and push that market. You know what I mean? Because right now they need somebody like that. Even though they do have a lot of great European fighters, it's just I feel like Jan could be that with that Polish power and all that stuff. But anyways,
he could get the whole country of Poland behind him. So there's a whole lot of upside to him, fighting Israel and winning. I think it's the perfect style matchup for Israel.
And if Jan wins, he could go up there and fight John Jones. I feel like whoever wins that fight is the one that's gonna go fight John Jones eventually. And if Israel wins, yeah, they got lots of options. And the thing is like what the UFC wants. The UFC wants Stipe to fight Ngannou. Whoever wins that fights Jones. Jones wins. Israel beats Jan. They meet at the end of the year. We already know the roadmap. We already know what they want, right? We just want to see if that's going to happen. That's what makes me interested. Is that going to happen? Are we going to see undefeated versus John Jones, who is undefeated also, right? If they still have those undefeated records intact, that's the biggest fight in history.
I agree.
Am I lying?
No, I agree 100%.
That's the biggest fight in history. They keep their undefeated records intact and they meet at the end of 2021. That's the biggest fight in history. That's like major money.
A long shot. Like I think that's so much bigger than like Conor and Khabib. Like that's for Israel to go up two, like whether he goes up one weight class or two weight classes, like that's insane.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It is insane, and I'm here for it. I'm waiting for that to happen, but that nothing is official, nothing is announced, but we know what's gonna happen. They're gonna do it, and the other fight that's rumored, I think Dana White came out and said that they want to do it in February, but I heard that that's not gonna happen, which is Volkanovski versus Ortega. I know the matchup's gonna happen, but I don't think it's gonna happen in February. You guys been around him way more. You guys are very closely tied with him, both of you guys, George and Frank. Now with him and this matchup, do you think that they're doing the right thing by putting in Ortega? Was there another guy that let's start with you, George. Do you think there was another guy that could have been the challenger for this title?
Who's other than Ortega and Korean Zombie? Who's I don't even remember. Like, there's so many fighters now.
Well, there's a bunch of guys.
Zabit, Qatar.
Yeah,
He beat
No,
Holloway twice. Yeah.
I don't think any of those other guys. I think, like, I remember Volk saying, like, those guys needed to get another win, and then Ortega went and beat Zombie. So I think Zombie is the guy that deserves the winner of whoever, he won that fight against Zombie. So whoever would have won that fight, I believe, should be the next guy. And the other guys need to fight it out and, make another clear number one contender.
What do you think about the matchup with Ortega? Because Ortega he's a different animal now. He's like, he erased that memory of Max Holloway, like, beating the brakes off of him for 5 rounds. He erased that memory by going in there against the Korean Zombie, who everybody thought was gonna smash Ortega. I think most people thought that, like 90% of people thought that Zombie was gonna go in there and starch him, but that's not what happened, man. Ortega beat him at his own game with the striking, and this matchup with Volkanovski. What do you think, George? Like, how do you see this? Like, if you break it down from a coach's point of view, because you're not his coach, so you can say whatever you want.
Yeah, well, I know what he's capable of, so I think it's another, like, it's a good matchup for Volk, technically. Yeah, I think that, like, I don't know, like, when Ortega fought the Zombie, I figured the Zombie was either gonna knock him out, or if it went all to a decision, I thought maybe that Ortega would win. Because he's more, I think, even going into that fight, I would say more well-rounded, obviously with his BJJ and stuff. But, man, Volk's a different animal, bro. And people, like, he's won the belt, defended it. Like, how long are people going to doubt this guy? That's, like, to me, that, because I know him personally, and I'm like, I'm invested, like, personally and emotionally invested into him. But I just know how good he is, and he, like, the guy never gets the respect that he deserves. He's got midget over there making rap videos about him, and like, people calling him out and, like, just not giving him any respect. And I commend him how he deals with everything, but, like, I just think that Volk is, like, Ortega had this great performance, and he really did have a good performance, but the media and everyone just went bananas about this performance over Zombie. But Volk can do it all. He can wrestle, he's good on the ground, and he's striking, and his coaching staff, like, of course, Frank and I are, very close with them and know them very well. Like, I think Volk is gonna surprise people and, like, maybe make it look easier than what people think it's gonna be.
What's his biggest advantage? There's a question. What's his biggest advantage, you think?
I think his pace. I think the pace that he puts on, that Volk has, is incredible. And I've said this before he fought Holloway the first time. And his 3-round pace is hard, but his 5-round pace is crazy. And that pace for 5 rounds, like, you really got to have your gas tank switched on to be able to keep up and do the same output that he does. And I think as the fight goes on, his output just gets bigger and his gas tank just gets stronger. And you either got to match that pace, right, and stick with it, or eventually, as you falter, it's going to keep going. And again, like George said, not only can he wrestle and can he strike, and I think people think this just because he's He's not the same size as the other guys in that division. He's not long and lanky that he can't strike, but he's got great leg kicks. He can close the distance really well. His IQ is off the charts, and they always have a game plan. They have plan A through plan G, and if that doesn't work, they go to plan H. So they do their homework, they study, they know what's going on, and they always put themselves in the best possible positions. And I just think that, again, it'll be a hard fight, but I will think that he'll surprise a lot of people when it does happen. But Ortega's a phenomenal fighter. He's a long, lanky, crafty southpaw who really, what he did to Korean Zombie, nobody's really done before. And, he surprised a lot of people. So he has the potential, and, he has, I guess, a new group around him and the right mindset. So when you have two high caliber athletes like that, that makes a very, very fun and interesting matchup. So it's going to be interesting to see whenever they make it, February, March. Again, that's another one that I'm really excited for, and I'll definitely mark the calendar for.
Who has a more relentless pace, Peter Yan or Volkanovski? This is a question for you, George.
I think that it's a different type of pace.
Okay, break it down.
Volk has a high pace, but he also can, even though he's fighting at a high pace, he'll move back and then angle off and then re-attack, or he'll move the guy where he wants him, where he wants to position him at and stuff. Peter Yan will just be pressing forward, probing with his lead hand, and then just have his head here and maybe cover a couple shots, and then you're I'm going to back him up after I hit him, but then he's there, and then he just gives you 3 or 4 back. So I just think it's a different type of pace, but they both have really hard gas tanks and high paces, and both of them they're different fighters. Both of them have very high fight IQs, and I think that's especially what separates. I think Ortega's a great fighter. Obviously, I'm biased and stuff, but I think that Volk just not only his pace but his fight IQ. And the man used to fight at middleweight. People forget this. That's not a joke. If you see photos of him, or I remember when he first came to Tiger, because we came at the same time, so that was right after he had kind of stopped fighting at middleweight in such a high weight. That guy used to do concrete for a living, and while he was fighting until he made it to the UFC, he did concrete, and he was playing footy and fighting at 185. He might even fought at 205. I don't know, but he's fought big guys, so he may look small, but I tell you what, he's not.
With Volk, in his last 2 performances, I feel like a lot of people are just going to focus on those with him, right? With Max Holloway, and they're going to look at that and look at those fights and say, it doesn't look like he has the power, doesn't look like he has this or he has that. Maybe that's why he's not, as popular as a Max Holloway. Maybe, what do you think it is? Do you think that he needs to go out there as the champion? He needs that signature finish, and then people will start to realize it? Or can he just do what he does and all he has to do is win?
Volk is to me, we in MMA, there's been all these different cycles. It was BJJ, and then it was the wrestlers, and then it was the strikers, and GSP was in there, and he's to me, GSP's he's the best. He was the GOAT. He's the guy that used the jab to pop people in the face against high level wrestlers like Koscheck, who, if I'm not mistaken, Frank, was a national champion, right? 3-1. In wrestling in America, it doesn't get any better than that. And GSP's the guy that put everything together, the complete MMA fighter. And to me, Volk is the complete MMA fighter, man. My guy is tough as nails on the ground. He's tough as nails to wrestle with, and he's tough as nails standing up. He can box. He can He can throw kicks. He can throw elbows. His arsenal is so broad, and he knows, and his fight IQ, he just can put it together.
All right, now let's get to some of these questions because I want to close out the show with talking about Loma, somebody that you guys are both very heavily invested in, very close to. But before we get to her, I want to get to some of the questions. Let's get some of the questions, Nick.
Yeah, Luke Welling did have a question about Loma, so I'll leave that one. But he had another question asking if George and Frank, do you know if this Hooker Chandler fight's for real? That is a banger.
I don't. What Hooker say in the podcast, I cannot conjure nor contest whether it's going to happen or not. So it's not my business to speak about the boys' business. I always tell people that, like, reporters will message me like, "Hey, is this confirmed?" And I just say, "Oh, mate, that's not my business to speak about it." You know, so they're sure as hell talking about it like it was. I know everybody's been tweeting about it and posting about it, but you know, I guess when Dan makes an official announcement about it, then it'll be real. But until then, you know, you guys are guess as good as mine. You know.
That's so funny that reporters will reach out to you to get secret information about
It's crazy, mate.
me, dude. That's so funny.
Yeah, they do it.
I don't even message you about that shit. Like, I don't even message
call
you
me
guys
about it.
You know,
John, you'll ring me about it and just say, "Hey, man, like, what's the deal?" No, I'm playing, but these dudes will. They'll message me on Twitter and just say, like, "Hey, is this serious or is this confirmed?" You know, and I just say, "Hey, it's not my business to speak about it. If they want to release it, they'll release it. You'll know when it's official." You know, so.
From what I heard is that it's far from a done deal, and whoever like reported that, they jumped the gun big time on it, and it could, and you know, what does that mean? That means they're still in negotiations for that fight if it's actually going to happen, right? So having that out there, it doesn't really help the fighters, I don't believe. You know what I mean? Like, you need to really confirm
what it
everything.
does is it's just because then everybody else jumps on it and clickbaits it, and then next thing you know, it's
That's what
like,
happened.
all right. So then, what if it doesn't happen? Then everybody's like real put down about it. But in reality, you should have never got your hopes up until it's officially announced. Until they say, all right, boom. And then when you go on the website and you pull it up and they're on the main card, then you'll know. But, you know, like you said, you won't know till you know.
Exactly. And if the fighters are not coming out and confirming this news, that means it's not a done deal. Because if it was, they would come out and said something by now. You know what I mean? So what's the next question?
On that topic, John, you've stirred the hornet's nest for me with the Shinya Aoki news. So one championship's coming after us.
Like,
not one championship.
Yeah. So John had the news Shinya Aoki's going to fight James Nakashima next month, but they're demanding to know. We can deal with that later. Yeah, it's but you know that one's not official. You know what I mean? Official. They haven't made the official announcement. Is that a difference? Do you think, guys? Like if you get a source telling you a fight's on, do you think you should still wait for the promotion to announce it, or what? Where do you draw that line?
Unless you have a really, really good relationship with the fighters and stuff like that, and they're comfortable with telling you that. But other than that, you're just going off of assumptions and like hints. But, you know, just because somebody puts out a picture or somebody puts up a picture and says, "Let's see you try to take me down now." I mean, who knows? He could have been setting people up for that anyway. And people now are probably, it's probably just channel. But again, you don't know. But, you know, the reporters are all about who can get it out first. You know, they want the views and stuff. So
that's the name of the game right there.
Yeah.
Who can get it out first. That's
John. John sold his soul.
Well, I trust John. If John comes to me and says he got something, I trust John.
Usually if I'm gonna put something out there,
if
usually something's out there, then, you know, like if I put it out there, it's something that is confirmed.
Hey, I trust Kumite Radio, John, but I don't trust this new John.
Maybe. All right. What do we got next?
You got some others. I don't know if you care about this stuff with Askren and Jake Paul, is it?
Let's
We
blow
can
Let's get this one by Johnny
get
Betts.
this one. What about you got a better front headlock? Johnny Betts is asking Georgia Frank.
I'd say probably me, eh?
I'll let him have his fame.
All right.
But Frank will whoop me.
Okay. What about this from Adam H? Who are some up and comers at Tiger we are yet to see in a major promotion, but we should keep an eye out for?
Well, the first one that comes to my head is he fights in one championship. His name is Fabricio. Fabricio was about 28-1, 29-1 in kickboxing, and then he fought in Bangkok just about around 2 months ago, and won for one championship. And he fought that Mark Alboreto kid who was very tough and submitted him in the second round. But Fabricio he fights, ONE FC does that 10-pound, et cetera, et cetera. He probably is a true bantamweight, but he's fighting in featherweight for them. But he is a gun, man. Fabricio is very, very good on his feet. His wrestling has come so far. He's got a natural feel for everything. He's a blue belt in jiu-jitsu, or maybe he's a purple belt. He's got good ground stuff, and he's a workhorse. Yeah. They're good. I mean, he spars Rafael. He spars Peter Yan. He when Brad comes over, he spars Brad. He's young. He's 23 years old, man, and he does everything up there. Yeah. So I'm excited for him. I am excited, and of course, there's Bruno Miranda. Bruno's had 10 finishes, 13, 14 wins. I think he's 13-3 or 14-3 with 10 finishes. I don't know why he hasn't gotten in yet. I'm still waiting on him to get his call up because it's long overdue. And he's another guy who's a gun and who's been here a while and he's put his time in. He was here way before I was, and does everything the right way. Wrestles, works out, trains hard. He's a good workout partner, and he's another one that I think when he does get a shot and his call up, he's going to take full advantage of it. And there's many others that we've missed, I'm assuming. We got some girls in the pipeline. Claudia is fighting for Combat Americas. She's on the rise. Mel fights in Eternal. She's very good. Jada's been Muay Thai. She's changing over to MMA. She's doing well. Casey just signed with the UFC. She's making her debut in February. So there's a lot of good potential fighters that we have. It's just the only thing holding us up right now is this whole pandemic, if you know what I mean.
You want any more questions, John? We got a couple from our friend Eddie the Blasian.
Yeah, let's throw it up there. Let's see what he says.
Okay. Leon and Hamzat coming up. Is Hamzat going to get exposed? What do you think about that fight?
What have you guys heard through the pipeline about Hamzat? Or have you guys ever seen him train or trained with him or anything like that?
He's one of the brothers. Pass the bread, brother. Pass the bread. He's he's part Chechen, so he knows a lot of the boys that we know and stuff. But again, he obviously impressed a lot of people fighting back-to-back weekends. You know what I mean? Getting it done, and then fighting the other guy, knocking him out in 17 seconds. So he has his hype, and he's doing good with it. I definitely think Leon Edwards is going to be a big test because I think Leon Edwards at welterweight he deserves to be right there in the top 2, top 3. I mean, that guy's good. He can do it all. He's crafty southpaw. He really impresses me. I'm really excited for that fight. I think either way it's going to be good for the fans. If you're asking me who I'm going to pick, I'm going to go with the Paradigm Boy. I'm going to go with Leon. But again, it's going to be – I know everybody's wanted to see it, when it got canceled the first time. So everybody's excited to see that one.
I just don't think we know enough about him yet. He went in and mauled some guy, and then he went in and mauled another guy, and that's all that we've seen. He hasn't been, tested yet, because he's that good. So I don't know who, I think it's a bit like Frank said, it's a big test, and man, if he goes out there and does Leon like that, then he's a force to be reckoned with. So I'm just really excited to watch it because I just don't know that much about him yet.
Yeah, that's my thoughts too, man. I'm gonna go with Leon because he's the proven one. You know what I mean? Like he's been. Or did I say something else yesterday? I don't remember, man. I be flipping and flopping all the time, so I have no idea. But anyways, I'm just excited to see the fight and to see if this is a true test, man. I'm all about like fighters getting their opportunity, and this dude is getting a major opportunity against Leon. If he wins this fight, he's gonna get a title shot. So
there's a lot to be said for somebody that's on like a hot streak or has like his confidence right now must be through the absolute roof, and that's very dangerous and like can be very dangerous to come up against. Like I'm a big believer in like jumping levels. Like one good performance, you might not be at this certain level of the guy that you're at, but if you beat that guy, it makes you jump levels. And I think that after that you can compete because you see it all the time in wrestling. For example, prime example, Justin Gaethje, he coming into the national tournament beat Frank and I's teammate and like really, really good friend who was a 2-time All-American. What, first or second round, Frank? Second round, and then went on to become an All-American, and then like was beating other good guys at that level, but came into the tournament maybe not quite ranked as high and stuff like that. And I'm a big believer in like when you get one of those wins like that and you rise to the occasion and you beat somebody like that, man, that's like a lot of times you don't regress, you don't go backwards. You're fighting at that level,
yeah, definitely. Now, what do we have anything else? We got Colby. Is Colby getting another shot at Usman, or is this Burns fight going to happen? I think the Burns fight is going to happen. I feel like that's the fight to make.
Yeah.
And the storyline is great. You know what I mean? They trained with each other for like I don't even know how many years, so they know each other so well, but they're not like best friends. You know what I mean? They're like they were teammates, they were close teammates, but they weren't like best friends. Like they weren't like, and this is what Burns was telling me in the interview that
has Usman left?
He'd been gone.
Yeah, but I thought like initially he was just going away for 1 camp. Like gone for good now.
I don't know if he's gone for good, but he hasn't been there since they were announced. Since they were like kind of like pitted against each other, he left Sanford, and he's been all around the spots. Like he was at with Trevor Whitman in Colorado, and I seen him at Dallas with at Fortis because I think his brother trains at Fortis. His younger brother.
Wasn't he just in Vegas?
And he's in Vegas too from time to time. So he hasn't been at Sanford in a while, and they're kind of is that a telltale sign that he's not going to go back? I don't know. I have no idea, but it's a telltale sign that these dudes are going to fight each other. You know what I mean? Like it's going to happen, this fight. So I don't think Colby's going to slide in there anytime soon. I think Colby will need another win. What do you guys think?
I think it'll be Burns versus Usman, and then for the storyline, and then I would assume with the bad blood and the build-up, they'll really build up and push Covington versus like a Masvidal.
Yeah,
that's what I think.
Go ahead.
No, I think they have two very good narratives. They have two ex-teammates that are going to fight each other, and then they're going to sell these two next guys that are just like old friends that are now just have bad blood and just really do not like each other. And they're going to do that, and it's the same thing. They both come from the same gym. But now they're going to have, now they're going to pump it up to where they're going to fight. So, and then whatever happens with those two might get the next title shot.
Yeah, that's probably the storyline. What do you think, George?
Yeah, I think that Burns and Usman will fight. I was listening yesterday to the Submission Underground Boys, and they had Colby on, and he was just saying, he was referring to Masvidal as Street Judas and saying that he's like, he's not ready now, like saying that he's not ready and basically like saying that he doesn't want to fight him and stuff. But I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, Colby, whenever you watch his interviews, you just don't know what is real and what is not real. So it's hard to he's feeding the headlines though. Talk about clickbait, like he's feeding that. all day, every day, and that's why you want him on the show. You want him to come on because he brings the eyes, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So, anyways, like, what is it?
You got one more question, guys. If you want to, from Luke Welling, what's next for Top Noi?
How could I forget about Top Noi?
I'll let.
Yeah.
Top Noi is a character,
Body no-
and Body No Sane. He is a character, and he's like somebody I've never seen really, because the shit that comes out of his mouth is absolute bullshit. But you know what, man? you have to give the guy credit, because when he wrestles and when he spars and that, like, he is good. You know, his takedown defense is really good. We have a kid that is like helps us. He's our assistant. You know, shout out to Shay. His name's Shay. Went to school in America, wrestled in America a bit, lives over here, but he's full Thai, and he helps Loma. He helps Top Noi, and he helps. You know, he comes all the wrestling, so he's a big help to us. And he's good, and he'll wrestle Top Noi, and he'll struggle with Top Noi a lot of times. And I'll watch them wrestle, and I'll go, man, like, I'll tell George, like, man, he's good. He's athletic, he's talented, he's a southpaw. Lucky left, he calls it his lucky left, and he drops everybody with his lucky left at least once. But you know, sometimes how he goes about stuff, you know. Then other times he'll do great training, and then George will leave. Like, George left. I haven't seen him since he left. He gave me some bullshit excuse. You got to just laugh at the guy sometimes. And then he'll train really good, and then you walk by and he'll be smoking a stogie, a cigarette behind the building. Like, you just don't know what you're gonna get with Top Noi sometimes.
Yeah, he's a character, man. I hope he comes back soon.
Nah, I mean, he's about, but he won't come. But you'll see him holding pads with somebody, or like doing a striker with somebody, but then he'll go, "Oh, my rib P, or cannot." Like, he'll just give you a bullshit excuse, you know.
It is rib. He sent Frank a message. He sent it to me too, and then sent it to Frank, because Frank messaged him, and he said, "I will return to the fort soon." And we and Frank were like laughing, because we know that he used Google Translate to send that. And then he sent a voice message, and he was like trying to explain something. And then he was just gave up. He was just like, "Oh," and then just hung up the phone. It was so funny. Hopefully he fights, man. He's a ledge.
Yeah, man, he's still young too, so it's not like, you know, he's a guy that's like in his late 30s or something. That guy, he's young and he has so much experience. So once they start opening back up and allowing him to fight in other countries, he's gonna do some damage. Now, before we shut the show down, let's get into Loma. I saw that Loma had a cast on her arm. Like, what's the situation with that?
All good now. She just had a little problem in her thumb, so she's all good now.
Oh, really? Was that from the fight?
Yes.
Okay, so she hurt her thumb in the fight.
Yeah, it was I think her thumb or her pointer finger. Can't remember.
I think she heard it in the Auckland. She heard it before the Auckland fight.
No,
really?
She heard it. No. She heard it in the last fight.
Okay. All right. So she got so the cast is off now. She's back to like
all good, 100%. Everything's fine.
So when is she planning on coming back, like, to fight? Actually, what's her like target date? When does she want to return?
I'd like to get her in there soon.
Okay, so you're looking at Fight Island then, like trying to get in there real fast.
I don't know about that soon. Yeah, I mean, look, if somebody falls out, then she's could possibly be ready, but probably February.
Okay.
February.
Okay.
March. I mean, I don't like have to speak to her management and stuff, and also right now Thailand's had a spike in cases, so who knows what like the Thai government's going to do. So hopefully everything's fine and we can get out.
Yeah, I hope so, man. Do you guys see any like good matchups for her that you would like her to, you know, take on? What do you see in that division?
What do you see in the division, John?
For her? You want her?
Yeah.
You want me to be matchmaker and put her against somebody in that division? I feel like she should fight somebody that's like on the edge of the top 15 in her next fight, get one in, get another win, and then hit that top 15. I feel like that would be a good path for her. You know what I mean? Especially she's I could see like a what's that girl? Felice Herrick. I don't think she's ranked anymore. And is she a strawweight? I believe she is a strawweight, right? Felice Herrick. She's a decent name. She has good experience. I think that would be a good test for Loma. I think a name, someone with experience, would be a great test for her. Putting her against another prospect wouldn't be something that you want to do.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you, John. I don't disagree with you.
But you'd have to dig deeper into that division to see what the matchups are. But with the COVID and stuff, like you don't know what kind of matchups are gonna come. You know what I mean? They could throw you like a girl that's top number 10 in the world. You just don't know at this point because she fought Angela Hill in her second fight.
And what's Angela ranked now?
She's top 15, and she was probably higher at that time when they fought.
Yeah, she's mate. She's, I don't know. Hopefully soon, like just get her back in there. She's been training the whole time since she came back from the last fight, and yeah, she's been improving, and we're excited for the future for her, obviously.
All right. Well, before we get out of here, tell us, what's the plans for early next year? Where can we maybe see you guys? Frank, what do you got down the pipeline?
As of now, we're just waiting on Thailand to open its borders back up. Open its borders up, people can start coming back in. 2-week quarantine, and then So I guess if guys really want to train and really want to go about it, they got to do a 2-week quarantine. So again, I think a lot of our future plans and what we want next year leading into is going to depend on what goes on in the rest of the world, vaccine rollout, et cetera, quarantines, all that stuff. But, just focusing on the guys. Rafael just fought, had a phenomenal performance. I know Izzy got a fight coming up, Brad and the boys, Volk as well, don't know when. Loma eventually. Focus on the guys here. Fabricio fights next month as well in January. So just focusing on the guys here until we figure out like what's really going on. And when you hear news about the next Fight Island, if it's in Fight Island, Abu Dhabi, if it's in Vegas, and all that, and just face the facts that we're probably going to be doing more 2-week quarantines, unfortunately. So, yeah, that's where I'm at right now. Waiting for George to get back because I'm running the ship right now, and just day by day.
George, you're gonna have to get on that plane, huh? Not too far from now, right?
Yeah, Khalil's coming up, and yeah, same thing, man. Just I get back when I get out of quarantine, just help him for the remainder of his camp, and just hopefully, like whatever happens with COVID, hopefully it gets better, and whatever, people are vaccinated, and I just honestly, I'm prepared for more quarantines, but like they should shorten it, I believe, and I think, I think that whatever the world needs to do to sort itself out, it needs to sort itself out, right? It's getting a bit. I know that is, whatever. I'm not going to go into like COVID politics, but yeah, just whatever needs to happen to get things back to normal or closer to being normal. Let's go.
All right. Well, make sure you guys go to the Hickman Brothers YouTube page and subscribe to their page, to their channel, and follow them. They have tutorials. They have breakdowns. They have they have training footage. You know what I mean? All kinds of stuff. Just go check it out and support them and follow them on Twitter and go to their Facebook page. Give them a follow. And yeah, man, just follow their journey, and I'll be doing the same thing. Thank you so much. Make sure you guys to subscribe to this page, like it, share it, whatever you need to do. Nick, appreciate you always for being in the background, and yeah.
Are you not getting there? Hall of Fame?
No.
What was that? Sorry.
Can we call you Corporate Nick?
Corporate Nick, you can, yeah. I guess that's
microphone over there.
He doesn't look like it. He's
Nah,
dressed like he's about to go to the baseball game.
Yeah.
yeah, man. I don't
Oh,
own
Vic.
a suit, I'll tell you that.
All right. Well, anyways, I'm about to shut this down. Thank you guys so much for coming on, man. I appreciate it a lot.
Cheers.
Thank
boys.
you.